r/AskReddit. What is the biggest this relationship won't last red flag you've ever seen at a wedding? My cousin's wedding. He was in the army, his bride was 6 months pregnant, a senior in high school, and she had just turned 18 the previous day. Her grandfather was the officiant and he gave a big speech about how marriage was only between one man and one woman and no one can tear apart what God puts together. They opened their gifts in front of everyone like it was a birthday party. There was no alcohol, dancing, or food. Within 30 to 40 minutes after the gift opening, the happy couple peeled out of the Boy Scout lodge, doing donuts while her teenage friends cheered them on. They spent the night at the hotel everyone was staying at, separately, which consisted of him getting shut-faced with his friends while she was alone in their room. In front of our entire family, my sister said, "I give them a year." She was wrong though. Within 3 months of the kid coming they had split and my cousin swears the kid isn't his. The whole wedding was one giant ducking red flag. When the ex-girlfriend stood up to object with a pregnancy stick in her hand. "Positive it's you," she said. "Never invite an ex to a wedding. Or don't cheat with the ex. Or cheat at all." I saw the newly married couple step out of an elevator, and he accidentally stepped on her dress. She snapped and turned around, yelling, "Do that again and see what happens." He was stone-faced and without saying anything, immediately went to the bar for a beer. I honestly thought you were going to say, without saying anything, immediately stepped on the dress again. I wasn't actually there, but a girl I went to school with posted video of her ceremony on FB. Groom was so drunk the best man had to hold him upright. Lots of swaying and random, incoherent babbling. Bride didn't seem particularly fazed by it and had a sort of, just ignore him and amp, let's get on with it kind of attitude. There was also an album of photos and the groom was flipping off the camera in literally every pic he was in. I was honestly shocked that the officiant went through with the ceremony, and doubly shocked she put it out there for everyone to see. Cue a few months worth of, "I can't believe he's drunk all the time" follow-up posts. Divorced less than a year later. Bride told me and my partner a few weeks earlier that she didn't want to go through with it. She had generic vows, husbands were beautiful. She had a sour face the whole time, it was almost funny. It ended up turning out that she was shagging my partner the last year and she left her husband for him 4 months in. I dodged a bullet. Holy shit. You dodged 2 bullets. Went to a wedding for one of my older, male, cousins who has 2 sisters about my age. Apparently the bride talked to the oldest sister, whom the groom was very close to, and said something like, "Just so you know, you are not the most important girl in his life anymore. I am. Can't wait to see how this one plays out." Groom was making out with a bridesmaid while his new bride proceeded to get blackout drunk and cry in the corner. This sounds like a junior high dance. Wish that was the case. It was a total shit show. Goes without saying they were separated within 6 months and divorced within a year, after being together for 5+ years. The bride did not smile, neither during the ceremony nor during the reception. She never cracked a smile. Former groom here, I was deadpan for my entire wedding ceremony. My wife's entire family said it was a bad sign, but my family and friends all jokingly asked if my chair was uncomfortable during the ceremony. It was, but I also hate ceremonies. I hated the attention on us the whole night. The groom wanted to delay the wedding so they could do a last-minute Taco Bell run. They were divorced within 18 months. Honestly, would just confirm that the person I'm marrying is indeed my soulmate. Attended a very big, very religious wedding of a 21-year-old bride and a 22-year-old groom. They lied about where they met. It was on Tinder. During a round of truth or dare with the groom and his members of the wedding party the night before, he admitted his biggest love language is touch, but that is so hated to express affection physically. All he wanted was to be cuddled sometimes, and she'd refuse. He said he hoped it got better after they were married. All the groomsmen made frantic eye contact and changed the subject. They are still married, as of a year later, but guys, nothing gets better after you get married. That's still your partner, that's still your relationship. My top love languages are older guy marrying a young Eastern European. The groom's friend said at the reception, "This party is great. I hope I get invited to the one next year." The guy had been married a few times before. The bride and groom got in an argument post-reception and the bride ran away. It was in a small town in the middle of nowhere, but we ran around all night trying to find her. Lol. What an adventure. Edit. Since so many are asking, yes, we found her after a couple hours. LMAO. She was near the hotel just chilling outside acting like nothing happened. The other day a co-worker told me about a wedding she was just in the bridal party for. The groom and his mother were counting out how much each family gave as a cash gift and giving the bride grief because her family weren't able to give as much as the groom's family. I feel like that's an insanely bad way to start a marriage. The groom spent almost the entire wedding glued to his female work colleague, to the point that the bride had to drag him away for their first dance. They also kept going off somewhere together. A friend tried to follow them outside, but it was too dark to locate them. You could see the obvious hurt on the bride's face throughout the day. Prior to the wedding he'd taken his colleague away abroad for his stag do, just the two of them, despite the bride's protests, and in his wedding speech he pointed his colleague out and told her that he'd had the best time of his life that weekend. They're still together at the moment, but I don't see it being the happy ending that the bride was so desperate for. Nobody attended my wedding, so I guess that. Did you invite people? Slaps forehead. I knew I was fidgeting something. Bride going home with the best man, not kidding. Only 45 minutes into reception. Really? So what happened? Intercourse. Before the main course, but after the antipasto? Processional music was optioned by Pedro the Lion. I could never divorce you without a good reason. And though I may never have to, it's good to have options. But for now, I need you. But for now, I want you. But for now, I'll hold you. That marriage lasted a year and a half. The groom refused to get dressed and amp, wore a black t-shirt and amp, sneakers. The bride looked incredible in her gown and amp. He looked like he was popping to the shops for a pack of ciggies. Groom was clearly having a good time. Bride was visibly uncomfortable. When it came time for vows, the groom had a long list and read it off nicely. The bride said something along the lines of, "I'm just gonna wing it. Basically, you're my best friend," and trailed off soon after. Thank God for the open bar. Not at a wedding, but I knew a guy who had been having problems with his girlfriend for a while. So the best solution he could come up with? Proposing. Just for your information, proposing marrying someone isn't going to magically fix the problems. Or having kids. Of course not. You need to buy a house first, then have the kids. Problems solved. I'm the keyboard player for a wedding band, so I've seen all sorts of ridiculous shut-at weddings that would qualify as a red flag. That said, one stands above the rest. The groom aggressively grinding on two of the bridesmaids, simultaneously, one of which was the bride's sister. The groom said the wrong name during the vows. Ross, take the, Rachel. At the reception there is a local tradition for the groomsmen to steal the bride. Basically they do a quick bar hop and come back to continue the reception. My husband was a groomsman, and as more than an hour passed, I finally called him. He said she was having a blast and wouldn't leave. The groom had arrived back after about 30 minutes, laughed it off at first, then relief when she finally blew back and totally smashed. They made it about 2 months after that. I've posted about this before. It was my wedding. The groom stopped the entire ceremony, which was held at our place, so he could watch The Simpsons. There was no discussion about this beforehand, he just did it. No, we are not still married. Shocking, I know. Was this before or after season 8? The father of the bride made a speech about how he saw his daughter organizing the groom over time. Basically, instead of telling a story of their burgeoning love, it was a tale of how she began to control him over time. Was cringy. Lasted 3 years. That's a long ass speech. Good on you for staying until the end. Best friend's wedding. 15 minutes into the reception, the wife is at the main dinner table screaming at her mom, who is across the room, calling her a crack whore. She's a gem. At my own wedding, when my wife threw the bride bouquet over her shoulder towards all the single ladies, one of them took a few steps back to take a run up and use the shoulders of some other girls to jump like a quarterback, making the final game deciding touchdown. She literally flew over the other girls, but another girl got the bouquet before she could reach it. which didn't stop her. She forcibly snatched the flowers out of the other girl's hands while in midair. The flowers were ripped apart at that point and a lot of the girls were falling and stumbling to the ground. She emerged out of this pile of single ladies with a couple of destroyed flowers in her hand, her hair and cloth all over the place, and made a loud winning shout out while looking around to find her boyfriend, which had quietly sneaked away while she was going berserk for the bouquet. It was hilarious and depressing at the same time. Her boyfriend ended the relationship shortly after the wedding. They made my cousin's girlfriend stand in the group, and when the flowers flew right into her hand she screamed and threw them away. It was hilarious. It's about 20 years later and they are still together, have 2 kids, and one of the strongest relationships I know, but they never got married.